through 232. All right, so share this, ping somebody, follow this page, follow this group, follow this club, however you want to state it. Okay, so we're going to go into some of these commandments. Give me a moment. All right, sorry to keep y'all waiting. Give me a few moments. I'll be right over there. In a few moments. I'm on my way right now. Okay. All right, sorry for the delay. Now, a lot of times when I use some of these different apps together, they tell me it's a poor connection, but we're gonna go forward. All right, so straightforward and simple. This is the Torah reading, the law reading for the day. I'll put it up to the screen, so if you want to take a screenshot of it, you can follow along. All right, so that's the readings for every day. All right. So it's going to be law number 211 through law number 213 with a midrash quatan, small midrash, small understanding, explanation, seeking of better understanding. So I'll get started here. I'm not going to draw it out. I just want you to have access to these laws, to the 613 plus. Now, 613 is just the foundation that was used and put together by Moshe ben Maimon, but it's not the actual totality of the laws when you read it. All right, so getting to law number 210. These are going to be dealing with the sabbatical and jubilee years. And we're also going to deal with the courts and judicial procedures. And we're going to stop right there at law number 232. All right, so law number 211, to cease from tilling the land in the sabbatical year. The land's supposed to lie fallow every 7 years. You're not supposed to plant any crops. Okay, you're not supposed to till the ground. Law 213, do not do any work on the trees in the sabbatical year. All right, you can't prune your trees, you can't pluck from the trees, you can't do anything with the trees, all right, on the sabbatical year. Dealing with the fruit trees. This is not dealing with ornamentation trees or shade trees. All right, law number 213, do not, law number 214, not to reap the aftermath that grows in the sabbatical year in the same way as it is reaped in other years. All right, so you can't go into the gardens and the farms and your vineyards and your olive groves and do harvesting. Okay. Law number 215, not to gather the fruit of the year of the tree in the sabbatical year in the same way as it is gathered in the other years. Remember, these things are supposed to be for the poor and for the animals every 7th year. All right. The Most High gave you an increase before that, so you could eat of the store that you had, okay? Law number 216, to sound the ram's horn in the sabbatical year, all right, which the sabbatical year, again, is every 7 years, the land rests, the people rest, the captives or the workers are let go free, all right? Anybody that owes any debt, the debt is canceled, all right? So pretty much anytime in that note, we come back to Hamashiach, that is a sabbatical for our spirit because we're claiming our redemption that was given by him. So Hashatan has to let us go, all right? He has to let us free because we claim our right of the redemption of the kinsman by Yahweh Shia Mashiach, as we read yesterday partially in Leviticus chapter 25. All right, so it all links back up to the Torah. They're not foreign concepts. All right, law number 217, to release debts in the 7th year. So every 7 years, the Hebrews were released from the debts. The Gentiles were not if they lived among us. Law number 218, not to demand return of a loan after the sabbatical year has passed. So if the loan was free in the sabbatical year, the person was released from their debt. Next year after, you couldn't come and say, now I need my money. Law number 219, not to refrain from making a loan to a poor man because of the release of loans in the sabbatical year. All right. So if you knew this, the 7th year was coming up when people wouldn't have to pay their loans back, Yahweh is saying don't fail to help your brother because you're going to be helping him for free, and the loan that you give him is not going to have to be paid back. So he's warning us against that. And by the same token, remember, everything is about contrast and balance. A poor person cannot go and say, hey, it's a sabbatical year and collect money from everybody, all right, just to take advantage of the system, okay? Now, they could, but that wouldn't be righteous, all right? That wouldn't be loving your neighbor as you love yourself. So that would end up returning upon them on their head as a judgment, all right, from the spiritual world, not from any judges on the earth, probably. These are people that were raised in the thought that were and heard it being read for what? For 6 years. All right. For 6 years they heard it being read. All right. So in the 7th year, there was no such as a lunar Sabbath, showing us that Yahweh is dealing with continuous cycles of 7, completion, promise. 7 means promise. 7 means multiple units of 1 that add up to 7. Okay. Law number 222, to keep the Jubilee year holy by resting and letting the land lay fallow, which is the 50th year. So the 50th year, we didn't let anything get done to the agricultural fields. And our spirits have been laying fallow also since our captivity and exile of the galut, which is the exile of the diaspora and the captivities. We've been laying fallow, all right? So now we have to have years of replanting, coming back to Hamashiach, all right? And coming back to Yahweh above all. Law number 223, not to cultivate the soil, nor do any work on any tree in the Jubilee year. Law number 224, not to reap the aftermath of the field that grew by itself in the Jubilee year in the same way as in other years. Law number 225, not to gather the fruit of the tree in the Jubilee year, same way as in other years. Law number 226, to grant redemption to the land in the Jubilee year. So if you bought a piece of land for $50,000 and $50,000 and the Jubilee year came, let's say in the 50th year of the Jubilee year, you wanted to redeem your land in the country was automatically given back to you, all right? And if you wanted it back before that, you would have to pay what was left of what was paid to you. You have to pay it back according to how it was left. If it was a few years, you paid that few years difference back. In other words, I buy land for $50,000 and the person wants to redeem it back from me 3 years before the Jubilee. So therefore, they would have to give me $3,000 and I would have to give them their land back. So that's how it worked out. You take the total sum of the land, divide that by 50, and each year that portion is taken off of the land so that if a person wants to redeem it back, they can get it back, all right, before the Jubilee, but they have to pay a certain amount of money. But at the Jubilee, if they didn't redeem it, then it would automatically revert back to that family. So you never lost your inheritance in the land of Yasharallah. You always had an inheritance. And we always have an inheritance, not in the captivities where we are now, not in the Americas, but we have our eternal inheritance in the land of Yasharallah, in the land of Israel. So we have that land that's coming back to us, all right? When we get back, when we get through the wilderness, when we get brought back together from the galut, the exile and captivities, going to the wilderness, we're going to go back into our inheritance, and these laws are going to be put back in place. Okay, so now we move into the laws about court and judicial procedures. The 15th category, law number 227, to appoint judges and officers in every community of Yashar Allah. So a judge and an officer is supposed to be set up in every community that we have. The judge is the person that can make the highest ultimate decision, and the officers were the judges to make minor decisions and to help enforce the decisions that the judges made. Okay? Law number 228, not to appoint a judge, a person who is not well versed in the laws of the Torah, even if he's an expert in other branches of knowledge. So you had to be a Torah proficient person to be a judge of the Torah, because that's what it's about. It's about making judgments in the Torah. All right. So if you weren't, you couldn't be set up as a judge. As a matter of fact, the elders of Yashar Allah themselves were proficient, had to be proficient in judgment, else they could not govern the people properly, and things would go to the judges, excessively, because the elders couldn't make decisions. So the elders themselves had to be proficient in the law before it got to the captain of 10. Okay, law number 229, to adjudicate cases of purchase and sale. So go into the Torah when you look in Leviticus 25 and 14 and look at, what are the laws about when things are bought or things are sold. All right. So that's Leviticus chapter 25, verse 14. Let me just go into that and review it real quick. All right, Leviticus 25 and 14. All right, when you make a sale to your fellow or make a purchase of the land of from the hand of your fellow, do not aggrieve one another. All right. So when you make a sale to your fellow, your brother, your neighbor, in addition to the simple meaning that it is forbidden to cheat anyone in business, the verse has further meaning in doing business, all right, that you should give preference, of course, to your people, all right. So that's what it's saying. That's what it's saying also as a slight midrash or commentary on that. But it's basically dealing with dealing righteously and dealing fairly, and not to aggrieve, not to deal oppressively with each other in selling properties, not to take advantage unrighteously of people when you're dealing with properties and sales from amongst each other. All right. Now, when we go into law number 230, to judge cases of liability of a paid depository. So let's go into that, into Shemot 22, Exodus 22, and Exodus 22 and 9. Okay, Exodus chapter 22, verse 9. Now, these numberings I'm given are according to the Hebrew Bible numbering, not the regular English or Spanish Bible numberings. All right. So law 22 and 9, okay, which is in Mishpatim. This is in the Mishpatim Parasha, Mishpatim. If a man shall give his fellow a donkey or an ox or a sheep or any animal to safeguard, and it died or was broken or was looted without an eyewitness, an oath of Hashem Yahweh shall be between them both, that he has not laid his hand upon the property of his brother. The owner shall accept it, and he shall not pay. So if something happens to the animal, all right, it's died, or somebody stole it and nobody knows what happened, the owner just has to say, I don't know what happened, and that's the end of it. All right. But if it was stolen from him, he shall pay the owner. So he has to pay the owner. All right. If it was stolen, if it be stolen, he shall pay to its owner If it shall be torn to death, he shall produce a witness. For the torn animal, he does not pay. If the animal was killed by another animal, he doesn't have to pay the money back. All right. So if the animal died or was broken or something happened to it, all right, physically happened to the animal, and you can still see that the animal is there, then he's not responsible. All right, he's not responsible. But if somebody comes and steals it, if somebody comes and steals that animal, then he has to pay the owner because it was put into his custody. Physical death, you can't really help that. If somebody's stealing it, you can help that because that's to say you have to carefully safeguard another person's property. And this is part of the system you see sort of relating to when you look at the Pashtun in Afghanistan, who themselves claim to be Israelites, But the Pashtun have the same thing. When somebody comes into their house, they have to protect that person unto death, okay? They have to protect that person unto death, not just the property or an animal, but they have to protect the actual person. And they're responsible if harm comes to that person, and they frowned upon by the community, all right? So that's the law about that, all right? Law number 231, to adjudicate cases of loss for which a gratuitous borrower is liable, which state, if a man borrows from his brother and something is broken or something dies, all right? So if I borrow something, all right, from you, I borrow your horse and you're not with that horse. If something happens to that horse, it's my responsibility. But if I borrow your horse and you're with me while I'm working with the horse, then I'm not responsible for it. I don't have to make any type of restitution. So if the owner is present, the owner has to be responsible for the damage to the animal. If the owner is not around, all right, if the owner is not around, then that person that borrowed the animal has full culpability and liability, all right, in the restitution of that damage, whether it be monetary or whether it be replacing it with another animal. All right. So these are the things that we have to look at and understand. You're responsible if somebody gives you something in your hands and they go away. You're responsible for it. This is, again, we have the moral application of what we're talking about in the law also. So if I give you $20 to hold for me and somebody steals the $20, guess what? You still have to give me my $20. Somebody breaks into your car and takes the $20, according to Tawada, you're responsible, all right? If I borrow a donkey from you and something happens to that donkey and you're with me, the Tawada says I don't have any culpability or liability on anything related to restoring that animal. I can choose to, but it's not compulsory for me to do so, all right? Again, these are principles you have to understand and apply in practical terms in different situations throughout life, all right? Law number 232, to judge cases of the sonless husband's death, which in short states that if a man dies and does not have a son, his brother has to marry his wife, the widow. He marries the widow and has a son and calls the son after the name of the brother that passed away, the brother that died, okay? Now, if the man refuses to marry his brother's widow, his sister-in-law, for whatever reason, the woman and the man go before the judges and the man's sandal is taken off and the woman spits in his face. And from that time forward, his name is called he who has his shoe taken off, his shoe removed. Okay, so that's what happened. So now remind you, we don't have any indication of whether that son, that brother is married or not married. So because that was a non-factor, it wasn't a factor on whether he was already married or not. The factor is he has a widowed sister, so that sister-in-law must join his family as his wife, and he must lay with her and have a son or have a baby with her, okay? Have a child with her, okay? So law number 232 is our last law for the day. All right. Now I'll read that law number law in Numbers chapter 27. Bamidbar 27, verses 8 through 11. Again, you have to look into the spirit of these laws also. This is what it's talking about, the spirit of the law, not just the letter of the law. All right, chapter 27, verses 8 through 11. Numbers 27, verses 8 through 11. And with that, I'm going to be finished for today. Thank you for your time. I won't hold you too long. Numbers 27, verses 8 through 11. If there be and to the Banya Yashar Allah you shall speak, saying, if a man will die and he has no son, you shall cause his inheritance to pass over to his daughter. If he has no daughter, wait a minute, 27. I'm sorry, I made it. Well, there's two cases of a sonless husband's death. There's two cases. There's a case of the inheritance, and then there's the case of the inheritance, which these two can go hand in hand. There's the case of the inheritance, and then there's the case of a son being born in that son's name. Okay, so let me read this. So what this one is going into is that man, if he dies and he only has daughters, okay, then that property is passed on to the daughters, but the daughters have to marry somebody within their father's tribe, because that child that is born is going to be from the tribe of his father, not the tribe of his mother. But if the mother and father are of the same tribe, then that child, that son, is going to inherit the land in the tribe of his father, which is his tribe. But if that son belongs to another tribe, then the inheritance of the man that died being from the tribe of Naphtali, and the widow marries somebody from the daughter, rather, marries somebody from the tribe of Asher, then Asher is now occupying perpetually the territory of Naphtali. And Yahweh does not want that. He wants every tribe to have their inheritance, as we just saw with the Jubilee laws. So let me read this to you. And to the Banyad Yasha'Allah you shall speak, saying, if a man will die and he has no son, you shall cause his inheritance to pass over to his daughter. If he has no daughter, you shall give an inheritance to his brother. If he has no brothers, you shall give his inheritance to the brother of his father. If there are no brothers of his father, you shall give his inheritance to his relative who is closest to him of his family, and he shall inherit it. This shall be for the Banya Yashar Allah, be for them as a decree of justice, righteousness, as Hashem Yahweh commanded Masha. Okay? Now, in verse 6, it talks about this. Yahweh said to Moses, Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, the daughters of Tazalpakad speak properly. You shall surely give them a possession of inheritance among the brothers of their father, and you shall cause the inheritance of their father to pass over to them. All right, to pass over to them. Now, we know later on when we go into the book of Numbers that when the inheritance passed to them, there was a stipulation. And with that stipulation, they could not marry anyone from a different tribe. They had to marry in their own tribe. Okay? If they married somebody from a different tribe, then that land, that territory would pass over from them into another tribe of Israel, another tribe of Yashar Allah. And Yahweh didn't want that. Yahweh wanted every tribe to have their territory. All right, so that's the time for the day. So the Most High Yahweh is concerned about your inheritance. And he gave us, and he's not going to allow another land, another country or people to come and stay and inherit our land. And that's what we have now. We are the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And right now we have Europeans and Arabs fighting over our land. All right. But if he's not going to allow the inheritance to pass from one tribe to another, he's not going to neither allow the land to pass from one nation to another. He did that with the Canaanites. He gave us the land of Canaan. He gave us the territories of Moab and some territory of Ammon. But he's not going to allow the Gentiles to occupy the land of Yasharallah. And we can see the fulfillment of that occupation that we see now happening in Ezekiel chapter 35 and Ezekiel chapter 36. We see what happened when the Most High allowed that inheritance to be taken from us and given to the Goyim, to the Gentiles, but not perpetually. It's not a perpetual occupation, all right? So those are laws for the day, law number 211 through law number 232. With that last case, law number 232 of the sonless husband's death. All right. It says sonless husbands. It should have said sonless man's death. All right. Because husband seems like it has something to do with the wife that he left behind. But it's not about the wife left behind. It's about the man not having a son and the land being inherited. All right. Now, also, remember, this law, if you understand the Torah and the law, is going to automatically make you make an association with the man that died with no son, all right? With the man that died with no son because of the inheritance issue and him having to raise up a son for his brother. It's also going to make you think about when a man causes his sons to inherit and he has two wives, all right? Does can a younger son get the land based on a relationship that he has with his father or mother, or can the youngest son can the older son be overlooked? Or if the older son, mother is an evil woman, can that son be punished or suffer and lose part of his inheritance because of the stress and the strain in the relationship of that older son's mother and his father? Nay, he cannot be held liable for that. He still must receive his due portion from his father, regardless of the father's relationship with the mother or what the father thinks about the mother. That's not supposed to have any impact on that son inheriting. If he's the firstborn, he has to inherit indeed as the firstborn. And Yahawashi HaMashiach as the firstborn to raise from the dead based on faith in Yahweh is going to inherit all things, as we see in the book of Colossians chapter 1. He's going to inherit all things. All things are his now. All power has been given unto him in heaven and in earth. So we see a lot of these different Torah laws are reflections of the mission and the accomplishments of Yahawashi HaMashiach. All right. So I think so it all comes back to HaMashiach. All right. Now, he gave his only begotten son, and that son is going to inherit all things, all right? So that, again, was Numbers chapter 27, verses 8 through 11, all right? Talking about the inheritance passing to the daughters, all right? Now, it gives degrees. From the daughters, it goes to the uncle, right? From the uncle, it might go down to the cousin. From the cousin, if there's no cousin, it goes down to other relatives. And you can see sort of a glimpse of this, both kind of being brought together with Ruth and Boaz, because she inherited the land, but she had to marry somebody from her deceased husband's family. She had to marry somebody from his family. So we see a practical application and illustration of this law when we look in the book of Ruth. All right, and they didn't have any children together either. So it didn't pass. She had the land, but the land had to be legally passed through her to somebody else that was in that same family, and it passed to Boaz. All right. So that's the law readings for today. Tomorrow on the Shabbat, we'll try to get up a little earlier, and if not, we'll still do it tomorrow to read the next set of laws, all right, which are going to be for the 12th. It's going to be law number 233 to 253, all right, and that's going to cover the court, judicial procedures. That's going to cover all of those laws. All of those laws we're going to read tomorrow are going to cover courts and judicial procedures. Now, if I can highlight law number 227, to appoint judges and officers in every community of Yashar Allah, based on Deuteronomy 16 and 18, we have to have judges, and those judges must be obeyed. Yashar Allah is focused at this point in doing other things outside of establishing a societal parameter of safety and oversight that every person can take advantage of and benefit from. Our focus cannot just be on building Idah or Makwara'a, building congregations and convocations, but our focus must be in setting up the parameters of our society. Where there is no hedge, the possession is spoiled. All right, so we don't have a hedge around what we do as a people, as a society. Even though we're in the galut, exile, captivity, we still have to have legal parameters, not just churches and camps and schools and yeshivot and things like that, kehilas and all of that. But we have to have an actual governmental society system in every country where we are to watch over our people, to watch over and to safeguard our people, much as we see the functions of a bishop or an elder being talked about in the book of Titus. But as we're trying to gather the children of Yashar Allah together, again, we're not in a time of Hamashiach or the time of Paul in the destruction of Israel, which happened after the time of Paul and Hamashiach. Now we're in a time of the resurrection of Israel, so we have to return now to the old path. And we have to look at what Paul is saying about judges and about elders and about bishops and deacons, and we have to put them in the context of the Torah, because now it's time to return to the old path, because Yashar Allah is being reestablished. Yashar Allah is reestablished, and we have to go now to the Torah, to the law, and do things the way that we see them being done in the scriptures. And I'll close with this, Yahweh willing. Jeremiah chapter 6, verse 16. Thus saith Yahweh, stand ye in the ways, and see, and ask for the old path, where is the good way, and walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk therein. So we have to look for the old ways and walk in those ways. And we have to seek and look for those ways. We have to ask about those old ways, which means we have to dig through history. We have to talk to people in different exile groups. Sometimes we might have to go into the Mishnah Torah or the Shulchan Aruch, all right? So we have to go into different records, examine, and know what the Torah that was given to Masha says, and apply that. Now it's time to go back to the old path that Jeremiah is referring to. And from Jeremiah back to Genesis, we see no mention of anything, of any oral law or anything that was written off the record that that he had to follow. He's not referring to that. He's talking about the ways, customs, traditions, laws, practices, all right, commandments, and statutes of the Banyad Yashar Allah from their exile back, not from the exile forward, okay? The old path, reading the Torah, walking in the Torah, things of that nature. Okay, so that's going to be it for now. Thank you for your time. I wish I could have made it a little shorter, but, we're getting the hang of it. So judges and officers must be set up in all of the cities. Don't cheat your brother because he might not have money, so you're going to say, I'm not going to give him any money. The scripture says, open your hand wide to him, all right? And also, you have to know the law to be a judge. That's why we need to raise up a system of governors that know the Torah, that know the Torah, that know the commandments, and then that understand Hamashiach Yahawashi. All right. So this is going to be available on Banya Yasha Allah on Clubhouse, and it's also going to be available on YouTube on Banya Yasha Allah under the title of Torah Commandments 212 to 230. I'm sorry, Torah Commandments 211 to 232 for the 11th day of the month. So if you put that in, you'll find it on both platforms. So may Yahweh be with you all, and then may Yahweh Shia Mashiach. Hey, Daniela, since we also on Clubhouse, did you have anything you wanted to say or share or bring out, Daniela? If not, that's okay. But if you do, come forward. All right, what you got to say?
Shabbat shalom. That's it.
Okay. Or it's okay. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom. Okay.
Malena has something else to say.
Okay. Shalom, Malena. Hallelujah. Okay, that's a pretty song she's singing.
Yeah. It's bachata.
Okay. Okay. I talk to you later. Shabbat shalom.
Okay, Shabbat shalom.
We're going to close out now. Shalom. Shalom. Lakam Yasha Allah again. All praise to Yahweh. Bashem HaMashiach Yahawashi.